Okay, do millionaires understand what it's like to be broke, and are broke people actually the problem when it comes to their money? So apparently Jubilee released a video talking about these things, and we are gonna talk about it and see what this is all about. Oh, wrong thing. Right over here. All right, let's see what this is going on.
I think we need to give help to these encampments, and the more we treat them as criminal and try to clear them away, the worse it's going to be for people.
When we have tourists coming in, it's so embarrassing because I have a lot of people who come to LA and they're like, oh, let's go see the Hollywood Boulevard, and you see people pooping on the streets, tents, and they're like, this is a third world country.
Which is basically how major cities are. I live in New York, and it is the same thing. You go to some of the biggest things, whether it's Empire State Building, Madison Square Garden, any of that, and you will see people sleeping on the streets or defecating, just like they said. So you see one or the other out here.
Being poor is a choice. Step forward if you agree with the prompt.
Well,
of course, it's pretty much most of the people who are millionaires think that it is a choice, and I'll give my 2 cents on that, but I want to hear what they got to say.
currently I am poor, very, very, very poor. And it might not always be their choice, but I do believe it's a choice. Absolutely.
What do you mean by that? That's not their choice. Elaborate.
Some people wind up in certain situations illegally in certain ways, you know, or some parents don't do certain things that they should, but whatever. But I believe it is essentially, if you're not gonna get out and get it, then you're choosing not to.
And we get our first ad, which means I can basically put my 2 cents in there. Okay, what I'm thinking he's trying to say is the fact that being poor, sometimes you're born into it, or sometimes you're in a situation you find yourself into, like, again, being born into it and all of that. That's perfectly fine. It's kind of like a saying that I've always heard growing up. It's not your fault if you're born poor, but it's 100% your fault if you die poor. So if that's what he's trying to mean, I completely agree with that, but we're going to continue on.
I have a follow-up question for you. Why do you think they choose to be poor?
Because it's hard to build. It's hard to build something, and it's scary to build something, and there's more excuses. There's more excuses than there are solutions.
A lot of times the reason someone's poor is because of they lose here before they lose anywhere else. Because we all have the same amount of time in a day. I know it sounds cliche, but it's how you're using that time. So 100%, if you're spending your day and you're not choosing to be productive in any way, it could even be as simple as getting a job or working, saving some money. I think that's how you stay poor. So.
He's completely right on that. Look, you have 24 hours in a day. 8 of those hours you're supposed to sleep. 8 of those hours, technically, if you have a job, you should be working. And then you have 8 hours completely free. What you do in those extra 8 hours can really make the difference between where you end up in life. You could be completely unhoused, or you can become a millionaire, or you could be somewhere in the middle, most likely, depending on what you do with those 16 hours that you're up and about during your day.
Especially in the 21st century, when there's thousands of ways to get out.
Tech.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can get it with AI.
I mean, I would say if you're under the age of 18 and you're a child, you know, but after the age of 18, everything beyond that point is it's your choice.
I believe that if you have a mental disability or a physical disability.
Oh boy, my first little advertisement, little chat on Kick. Justin, tired of streaming to zero. Let's change that. Only at I don't know how to even pronounce that website's name, but I am flattered. Thank you for coming onto this stream. But if I do end up chatting to just 0 people, I am perfectly okay with that.
That obviously you're not in the same playing field. More likely you are going to end up in poverty. But if you don't have any kind of disability, then there really kind of is like no excuse for me, I feel like. And if you work hard, go to school, put yourself out there, commit, I feel like you should be successful.
I think ultimately being poor is a choice, but there's a ton of nuances. If you look at Mexico, for example, it's like 130 million people. It was like 55 million of them can't find like adequate housing. That's not their fault. So I'd say there are cases where people have no choice in them being poor. 80% of the people that are unhoused is due to trauma. Think of you as, you're doing whatever you're doing in your life. You got a job, you're a plumber, an electrician, whatever, you're making a decent wage. And your wife and kids, they're coming home from a soccer game, semi-truck T-bones them, they die. That would be such significant trauma that could really easily lead to not wanting to work for a little bit. 80% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. So if you can't go back to work, or you don't have a community and a support system in place that can help you get through that and the capital to get through that, it's a pretty fast domino effect from you're missing work, you're missing rent, you're in a shelter, you're on the street, and if it's that type of trauma, the fastest way to get out of it is going to be a substance.
That's a very specific kind of trauma, though. That's a very specific situation. I have one that's more kind of common, kind of like if there was like a mass event where people lose their jobs. You see it a lot with tech, with the massive layoffs that they do. We've seen it in 2020 with the COVID-19 pandemic. When you have moments like that where you lose your job in an instant, that is a more common traumatic event that would lead people to kind of these kinds of situations, because when it's out of nowhere, you have no idea what your next step is. And when you don't have an emergency fund, or you don't have something like on the side bringing in any kind of income, or you don't have a spouse that's bringing in income, then that kind of leaves you in that fight or flight situation where you have no idea what your next step is going to be.
Of trauma being addressed is the biggest contributor to the unhoused crisis that you guys have.
I kind of disagree with that, because I know you said trauma causes it, but I think trauma is also subjective, right? Like there's like the parable about the two brothers where their dad was an alcoholic, and then one grows up to be an alcoholic, and he blames his dad. Now the other brother, who he grew up, became successful, didn't touch alcohol. They ask him why, and it's the same reason. The same trauma, but it just affected each one differently. So trauma or things out of our control may contribute, but I still don't think it changes the fact that being poor is a choice.
Because it depends on how you actually deal with that trauma. Like he said, the actual story behind it is that there's two brothers that live under an alcoholic father. Now, one of them became an alcoholic, just like his father, and then the other one went on to become successful and never touching a drop of alcohol. And they were both asked, well, what was the reasons why you turned the direction you did? And they both said their father, which really is a story about no matter what trauma you have growing up, it's how you respond to it that really dictates what happens with your life.
I come from Russia, so in Russia, it's a very tough mentality. I grew up in like a small village, and a lot of people could have like a victim mentality, but they don't. They toughen it out, and they just keep going no matter what. So when I came to America, I noticed it's super, super different than it is in Europe, and Eastern Europe especially, because people just here have a lot of like this victim mentality, and a lot of times it's like, it's crazy, but people in Russia don't even talk about mental health, which I don't think is right either.
Which is something that I hear a lot of from friends who are from other countries. The amount of victim mentality that is in this country is insane. And it's kind of like what Joe Rogan says in his podcast. Hard times create strong people create good times, good times create weak people create bad times. And we're kind of my personal opinion, we're kind of in that era where it's like weak people have now created the bad times. And now we're seeing like this sense of victim mentality, this sense of entitlement, like woe is me type situation. And that is what leads a lot of people to being stuck at where they're at, because they'd be like, oh, woe is me, the little man can't get ahead, blah, blah, blah. And unfortunately, that's what leads them stuck to where they are.
But in Russia, it's like you don't get depressed. You don't have bad days. You're not allowed to have bad days. So I feel like in the United States, we almost over talk about it, almost baby them, And sometimes I'm like, you need to be tougher in life.
Create assets that fit in with your entire campaign while staying on brand.
The last time I did this and I had this many ads, I automatically said that I should consider YouTube Premium. And now that this is the second stream I'm doing and I'm still getting the same crazy amount of advertisements in the first couple of minutes, maybe I should really start considering that. Oop. They're bringing in everybody else.
I first want to say that seeing people come up here and say that poverty is a choice is very highly offensive. And I want to let you know that
And I'm going to let you know, as somebody who was broke growing up, it is not offensive just because you feel offended.
Or y'all being millionaires, that's I find that deeply insulting for you to say that it was a choice for me to be poor. Now, one of you brought up the myth that if you go to school and work hard, then you'll just be successful. I graduated from UCLA despite getting my GED in prison. When I went to LSU to study for my MFA, I went there as a single parent.
What did you study? Here's the other part about the era that we're currently living in now. There's a lot of people who are getting college degrees just to get a piece of paper. I went to college just to get a piece of paper. I went to College of Staten Island here in CUNY. Then I went to Brooklyn College to get a degree, first in communications and then in television and radio production. Guess what? Those jobs would have probably made me about 50 grand if I'm lucky. And unfortunately, the job market has gotten really hard. So the fact that you went to UCLA, great school. What did you study there? And then the second you say that you went to get your MFA, your Master's of Fine Arts, that tells me there's something in the arts which is notoriously difficult to find a job right out of college. So what were you doing?
With my daughter to Baton Rouge, and we were homeless there. And working at LSU as a graduate teaching assistant, I was still in poverty. My daughter couldn't access good schools because of racism. She was in a segregated school where she didn't get the same services as the white kids. And it's funny for you to say that you come from Russia, and so we have a victim mentality here. But you can come from Russia to the United States of America and have white privilege that I can't access. I've been arrested for walking through Los Feliz just for the color of my skin. Is that a victim mentality, or am I being victimized? There's a big.
You are, it's kind of a mix. You may have been racially profiled. I cannot dictate what somebody else's intentions were, but I will say you did make the choice to go to LSU down in Baton Rouge for your MFA. So I'm not saying that you asked to be profiled like that, but you did make the choice to go down to Baton Rouge with your daughter to get your MFA, and you're saying you were homeless there. That was your choice, buddy.
Big difference there. So I want to say that all of you should check your privilege at the door. I never chose to be poor. No one from my background has ever chosen to be poor. Neither do any demographic that is living in
Your decisions dictate that choice.
Poverty in this nation. We face discrimination on a daily basis, and we're doing everything in our power to lift our.
I'm sorry, I know I'm pausing this a lot, but this is literally what that last woman meant when she meant victim mentality. A lot of this is like, oh, I'm offended or I feel disrespected because you're saying this, that, and the third. You're not even talking about the one dude on the Unhoused side who also said he believes that poverty is a choice. But maybe he'll get to that
by our
later.
bootstraps, as you tell us to. But continually, you guys get all the benefits, all the resources. We don't have any type of homeless packs that can go lobby on our behalfs. We don't have any representation, and we don't have any real opportunities.
So you don't have any opportunities?
Do I have the same opportunity as you? Absolutely not.
Here we go. It's all about racism. It's about, oh, do I have the same thing you have? The short answer is yes. The short answer, in my personal opinion, is there is nothing that gentleman has that's on your screen that the gentleman that is talking louder cannot get access to.
Your words, mine. We don't have.
We don't have representation. We don't have the same opportunities.
Your words was.
Yeah.
We don't have.
We don't have the same opportunities as you. We don't have the same opportunities.
So we're changing the wording, which is fine, and I can't even possibly disagree. I'm not in your shoes. I'm walked in your shoes.
I'll say this. I grew up poor. My mom immigrated from another country. I'm brown. I'm almost as dark as you. I understand where you're coming from, because I do agree that it is harder as a black man to have opportunities, but at the same time, explain all of the black millionaires I know that are close friends of mine that feel the exact same way. And I wish one of them were here, because then he could speak to you. It's harder coming from, I guess, white people. I'm the brownest one, so I feel like I have to speak on their behalf. But we came here, I had a single mom. Dad left when I was like 2 years old. So I understand how it feels to have nothing, but also at the same time, you don't feel like you have any opportunity?
Because you bring up exceptionalism and you try to use yourself and really insulted me by talking about the color of my.
So let me get this straight. You came out here and you felt offended by everybody else because you said check your privilege at the door. And then the one person of color who's also a millionaire tries to talk to you in an understanding tone, and you feel offended by him speaking out, saying that he's the exception or exceptionalism. Now you're playing the victim mentality role. And I wouldn't even know what to say at that point. Because it's like, we're in a society where it's like nobody wants to listen to somebody doing better than them. Like that just seems to be the issue. If you're doing better than me, you don't understand my struggle. Thus, you can't tell me what to do. Thus, I won't even bother listening to you. When in reality, if you want to reach a certain pinnacle of your life, you should be talking to people that are at that stage, because they can give you a lot of the wisdom that can give you a shortcut way past having to make all the mistakes yourself. That's why a lot of people sell courses. That's why a lot of people sell coaching and all of that, not just to make a quick buck, but to also give you a way where you can learn from somebody else's mistakes. And unfortunately, in this victimhood mentality that we have nowadays, nobody wants to do that.
My skin, you're almost as dark as me, because you try to bring up there's other black millionaires. See, what you're doing right now is you're trying to talk about anomalies for my community. There's a racial wealth gap that you can't address. You're not an African American, and you bringing up a couple millionaires here and there doesn't change the fact that the majority of all the wealth in this nation is in the hands of white people. African Americans here have not gotten any reparations. Wealth has not been passed down for generations. We had to deal with redlining. We had to deal with Jim Crow.
I didn't realize just how political this conversation would be. But what's your point? Like, you came on here to find a middle ground, and in the first 7.5 minutes, I've already found the biggest victim here on this show.
We had to deal, we still to this day, I was the first one in my family to be born with civil rights. My dad was born before the passage of the Civil Rights Act. I don't have civil rights. I've been wrongfully convicted, wrongfully arrested. I started getting arrested at 11 years old. I'm not brown, I'm a black man in America. And I don't relate to your experience or what you're bringing up. Because in my communities that I've lived in the poverty I've lived at the Union Rescue Mission in Skid Row, I've lived in South LA, in the ghettos, where I've lived at, there are no millionaires. The only millionaires are the real estate owners, the slumlords, who are exploiting us. Show us where in our community are these opportunities. Where's the investment?
I'm not disagreeing with you. I agree that it's going to be harder. I'm not saying it's not going to be as easy as it would be for anyone else. I'm not saying that. But you just said that I chose anomalies, people that are exceptionalism. Do you believe you can be exceptional?
I think if you're not using the van to do business travel, then you're missing out.
If the answer is anything but yes, then he believes that he's probably just going to be stuck where he's at the rest of his life.
I'm not here to represent myself and my exceptionalism. I'm here to represent the unhoused.
I understand, but
and when I go to Skid Row, the data shows and my life experience shows that most of them did not get to go to UCLA like I did.
The data, bro.
He didn't bother answering the question. It was a simple yes or no question. Do you feel like you can be the exception? The simple answer should be yes. Like, if you honestly feel that way about yourself. But he claims to be representing a whole group of people, unhoused people. You may be representing it in this show, but at the end of the day, you are also representing yourself and what you believe yourself to be.
Do you feel like you can be exceptional? It's just a yes or no question.
And I'm not answering your question. I represent the unhoused. I'm not here to be an anomaly. I'm here to represent the people.
Okay.
I was gonna say, here's just one thing. I was gonna say, you brought up the race inequality. I would also like to address the gender inequality. I'm a female. Do you know how it's crazy for me as a female to even have a job in my country? So coming to America, I was at a disadvantage too. You know, I didn't speak any English, zero.
My money says he's gonna go right back to skin color, and she is right. The same way it is harder to be that exception as a person of color, it is also just as hard doing it being a woman. But watch him say, even though you're a woman, because of your skin color, it was easier for you than it was for X, Y, and Z. My money says that that's going to be the comeback.
I had zero connections, no friends, nothing. So of course I could have played the whole, I'm an immigrant, I don't speak English, I'm a female card, but I didn't, you know? So I think you can really get out of it. And it is tough for everyone, but you know, you can't be stuck in this mindset.
So for you to say poverty is a choice, I'm a responder. If you say poverty is a choice, then you just insulted all the women that are in Skid Row.
I still think
all the women like my mother who went missing in.
Allow me to be the one to offend a bunch of people then, as someone who, again, was broke. I grew up in East Harlem in New York before gentrification, in Section 8 and food stamps and all of that. So allow me to be the one to offend you. If you are in your adulthood and you are still poor, chances are it is a choice. Most likely. The only exceptions I will have are people that are battling long-term addictions or people with mental health problems. Other than that, it is most likely your choice.
2011, chronically homeless. These are some of the women who are assaulted, some of the most vulnerable women in the city, and you've said that their poverty is a choice. They're choosing to be intense, being assaulted,
But a lot of them
and
do
go through
drugs
what they're
too.
going through.
Like a lot of them do drugs. So.
What does that? What do you mean by like the drug part though?
Because I know a lot of people that are on the streets like do drugs, and I've luckily, thank God, I've never touched a single drug because even if there's 1% chance you could get addicted, I just don't want to take that chance because I see how those people live, and I would never want to end up like that.
But that gets to my point, I think, about is poverty a choice? Because the drug abuse, the drug addiction is a big part of that. About 6 years ago, I met this guy, and I was already not doing very well, and he pulled out 2 needles, and my life was changed forever, and I was on the streets. And I think that I get that I made a bad decision by starting drugs in the first place. I'm not denying that. But at the same time, the people I've met on the streets, they're not, you say like we're playing victim. I think that these are some of the toughest people I've ever met, and we're struggling from a significant illness that is beyond our mental control.
And he's absolutely right. All right, so I agree with Jack on this. So when it comes to drug addiction, it is a disease in my opinion, and it's a disease that starts from many different sources. You have the ones that voluntarily choose to start doing drugs. Like he said, somebody pulled out 2 needles and his life changed forever. You also have people that went down this road due to the health industry, due to medication. People that were suffering maybe from injuries or some kind of health problems, and they were prescribed opioids or anything like that. And next thing you know, they get so addicted to the medication that they start going down harder routes. Drug addiction is very much something that I give a lot more grace to nowadays in my life because I've seen like the different sources. Especially in my family, we got a history of family members who have battled drugs throughout their lives. But yeah, I give a lot of grace to this one. To me, there is still a resemblance of choice depending on how you got started. But for those who have been battling it and trying to quit, or people who got into this because of like injuries or medical problems, those are the ones that I feel the most like empathy for.
It's hurtful to hear that poverty is a choice when there's people battling with drug addiction, and that's a significant thing. And drug addiction is not a choice. I think that some people are born with drug addiction. That's genuinely what I believe.
Do you think getting clean is a choice?
I was able to get clean. I have about 4 months sober, and but that.
Jack, if nobody tells you this, then I am so proud of you. 4 months clean at this point when this was recorded. If nobody else says it, I will.
Doesn't make me any better than people who were still using. I got clean because I was able to get housing temporarily. I was able to get a clear head. And I think people are telling people on the streets, if you want housing, you need to get clean. You need to go to rehab. That's the only way you can get off the streets. But people aren't going to get clean if they can't get housing.
So what's stopping other, I guess?
Ali, I love your hair.
I mean, it's easy to spot me on the...
I don't know what's stopping other people, but like I said, with Jack is like, I feel for him because I understand what he's saying when it comes to the like battling with drug addiction. When it comes to the last gentleman, I just feel like he's like trying to play the victim role. He's coming way too aggressive in a conversation.
Because they don't have the same opportunities I did. I knew somebody very high up in the Midnight Mission, and she was able to get me into the cafeteria to just spend the night, and I was able to get a clear head. Not everybody has that opportunity.
I was actually going to touch on something that Kate said. Like Kate, you agreed that being poor is a choice, but then you also brought up like disability, kind of putting you on a different playing field. Mm-hmm. For me personally, I have autism, and it's made it difficult for me to maintain employment, kind of like because social differences and like sensory difficulties and like with time management. Like throughout my whole life, I actually dropped out of high school 3 different times. I didn't end up graduating, but those same challenges that affected me in childhood, like I'm an adult now, but you don't grow out of that. and I get by mostly with like gig work and like odd jobs, but at the end of the day, maintaining stable employment is something that I want to do. And actually, studies show generally like 40 to 50% of homeless people actually are employed. So I think there is this big misconception that they're all like, you know, on the streets, like just doing drugs and they don't.
I want to verify that stat with the 40 to 50% being employed. I also feel like it's also going to be a problem with them being underemployed. Like, you're technically employed, but like she said, working odd jobs, gig work. Maybe you're doing something that's more minimum wage, like a starter job. And unfortunately, it's just not enough to like keep food on a table or roof over your head. That's a big issue in the country that I completely agree with. But going on to the topic of having autism or being autistic and trying to make it in this world, trying to like find stable employment and everything like that. My youngest brother is autistic. He's 11. I have plenty of like cousins who are on the spectrum as well. One of the biggest things that I think would be best is like you finding a job or a career that suits around what you are able to do. Like, sensory and social issues is definitely a big thing with those that are on the spectrum. So I would always like say finding something that is maybe something you work solo as opposed to being on a team or being more people facing, maybe tech, maybe remote work, anything like that, even though those are really hard to come by nowadays. Those would be a very good kind of like starter place for someone on the spectrum, career-wise.
Want to get better, and even the ones who aren't or can't still, I feel like, deserve compassion, because sometimes there's a lot of nuance to it.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Congratulations on that graduation.
Oh, thank you. It was so hard.
So proud of you for keep
thanks.
going. Like, that's amazing. Exactly. Like you have like a mental disability, which does set you back. You know, it is so much harder for you, you know, than an average person with a clear head. It is. But I'm so proud of that you keep going, that you're not giving up. You're amazing. Just
thank you.
bow
I
down to
appreciate
you.
that.
So do you guys think it's a choice for us to be poor?
Well, it depends. Like, do you guys have a mental disability or?
Based on the people that we have just seen, like in this first question / prompt, I would say the first gentleman, 100% a choice, 100%. Like, you are choosing to basically not want to take accountability for it. The second person, he was, you know, he's somebody that's still battling with recovery from drug abuse. So I would say it's less likely choice and more along the lines of like choosing to be sober every day and then dealing with the poverty part second. And then the third one, the woman that's on the spectrum, she's the one that I'm like least saying that it's just a choice. Because when you're battling a mental health issue like that or a development issue like autism, it's hard. Like, it's hard to maintain a social life, employment, things like that, because there's so many difficulties that come with it.
For physical disability, like, I feel like.
Yes. No hard feelings.
Yeah, I think with the exception maybe, I'm not well versed on that, so I don't want to speak on your position specifically, but for everyone else, I would say yes.
So
I mean, as
full-time-
respectfully as possible. Yeah,
So working full-time, going to school, being a single parent with sole custody and placement on my daughter, doing everything right that I'm supposed to do. I'm choosing to be poor by working full-time, by going to school, by taking care of my child.
That's a beautiful thing.
The thing is, you having a daughter,
That's a beautiful thing.
Choice.
Oh my gosh, he said the quiet part out loud. Oh man, okay. This is the thing with kids, in my opinion. There is a very, very small percentage of people who have kids out of force, obligation, anything like that. Most people have kids based on choice. Most people choose their partners to have kids with. So bringing a child into this world, for most people, for a vast majority of people, in my opinion, is a choice. And if you're choosing to bring a child into this world, then you are also choosing to take on that responsibility.
That was your choice, was it not?
I didn't ask you about.
Did you?
Again, avoiding questions. yes or no, was it your choice to bring in your child into this world?
You ejaculate inside your girlfriend?
Don't speak on my daughter.
You having a daughter?
Bro, don't speak on my daughter, bro. I asked you a question.
I'm asking you a question.
I asked you a
Is
question.
having
Am I
a daughter a
choosing to be
choice?
poor? Yes or no? By working full time.
So you want me to answer a yes or no question, but you want to answer a yes or no question?
Is working full time choosing to be poor? Just
Is
answer
having
the
a
question.
child a choice?
Is working full time choosing to be poor? Why you can't answer the question?
Yes.
First of all.
Yes, here's why.
First,
I have a daughter too, so
I
know where
love
you're
that you
coming
work
from.
full time.
I think right now you're trading your time for too little money. You gotta find a skill that'll allow you to trade your time for more money. Because you're working full time, you're grinding it out because you gotta make ends meet, right? Regardless. I know you seem like that type of person. I can hear the passion in your voice. You need to find a way to trade your time for more money so that when you work full time, it gives you more leeway, more freedom, better life.
I agree.
So you see it as choosing to be poor.
For you, 100%.
Yes.
For her, no. I don't know if maybe you've battled with.
For you, 100%. And I think he hit on a great point too. If you're working 40 hours a week, you're studying, you are a parent, and you feel like you're not making too much, chances are it is because your job that you're currently making right now is not giving you enough to live off of. And I could say this as someone who dropped out of college because I only have a high school diploma and I make a comfortable living in my job in New York City. You have to develop a skill that people are willing to pay for. Things like sales, which is what I did. Tech, you can learn a lot of stuff on YouTube and ChatGPT nowadays. It's so easy nowadays to learn skills, whether it's books, YouTube videos, AI, course careers, things of that nature, to develop a skill that is higher paying than what we were able to do just 10 years ago. That if you're still in this mentality that, oh, I can't get ahead and you just have to grind it out all the time, you're working harder instead of finding a more creative way to make your money.
Drugs, maybe it's giving you like a mental, maybe some kind of mental setback too, because I know how hard it is to be sober. So
I just if you think drug addiction, if you look at anybody on the streets right now, like screaming, talking to themselves, that was me. And it's just beyond me thinking that you believe, or some people believe, that.
Build a website you love with Wix.
Like I said, Keith is one of the two people that I will give the most grace with. He sounds like he's someone that's been through that.
Using that.
Capitalism creates homelessness.
Of course, you're the only one to believe that.
Yeah, so my perspective is whether you're looking at laissez-faire capitalism and you're looking at the industrialists and those who were, ultra rich, that created a system where the majority of the people are living in poverty and many of those people do not have homes. It's an exploitative system. And those who have access to the capital usually pass down as wealth through generations, wealth transfers from grandfathers, fathers to grandchildren, children. And those of us who are locked out of that capital are the exploited labor pool. So being homeless,
yeah, that part may be true. And this is the part of the story that nobody ever wants to tell. Yes, it is true that generational wealth does get passed down from generations to generations. However, it has also been shown that by the third or fourth generation after the wealth has been made, they also tend to lose their wealth. We've seen plenty of stories of the trust fund babies or the CEO's son that inherited money just going broke. So it is true on both sides, but I know you're not going to mention that in this video.
Subsidize our labor in Los Angeles. They'll even go to the point where you will get a subsidized job where the employer gets to use your labor for free. They don't have to pay you a penny. I've worked many subsidized jobs. Capitalism is the system that does this. Socialism,
that must be a California thing because I have not heard of subsidized jobs here in New York.
Systems where we all work together. Communism, systems where we all get an opportunity. We're working together, egalitarian, or those who have are actually helping to take care of those who don't. They don't create homelessness. They actually make sure to prevent homelessness. Okay.
As someone who's been on Section 8 food stamps and all of that and is now not on any of those programs, I will say I don't like the idea of I'm working, I'm putting money into this so that somebody who quote unquote doesn't have it can live a certain lifestyle. I'm sorry, my taxes that I pay into New York City now, and I see where it goes into, I'm just not a fan of it anymore. And that's coming from someone who grew up in that system.
Capitalism is an insidious system that keeps many of us locked out of wealth, that keeps many of us in homeless shelters and dying on the streets homeless.
You're really well educated on all this stuff. The way I see it, I guess, in the capitalist system, there's not really much of an incentive to help unhoused people. In fact, I feel like there's an incentive to kind of push.
There is an incentive to help people in a capitalist, quote unquote, capitalist society. I'm also thinking about the society we have in the United States. We put in so much of our as in people who work, the everyday Americans, of our tax money into the government. And it's just about what the government does after that. So if you're saying that, you know, the government, and I know California has a homelessness problem. If you're telling me that they're not doing enough for homelessness, that tells me instantly that the money that's already being allocated for it is not being used effectively. So that's a matter that you should take up with your government before anything else.
The unhoused people down, push them away. And as someone on the streets or who was recently on the streets, I could feel that pressure. Like I felt it whenever I walked into a store and then I felt like I wasn't wanted. Security would meet me, people would go away, or people moved away from me at the bus, or seeing a bus stop. You know how there's that rod in the middle of the bus stop? And you know that the city deliberately put that little rod there to prevent somebody from being able to lay down because they don't want us there. And I think a capitalist system does incentivize that. And I don't know the solution. I'm not gonna, I don't know much about socialism versus capitalism and all that, but I just know our current economic system is devaluing the interconnectedness of humanity.
Exactly. And economists and others can speak of capitalism as if these systems are in a vacuum, but in reality, these systems are tied into our reality as lived human beings. So we have to deal with white supremacy in our capitalist system. 40% of the homeless here in Los Angeles are African American, and there are historical causes and reasons for that. So while someone who was white or who was brown, who was a newly arrived immigrant can show up and say, hey, those black people, they just don't want to work hard enough. They're lazy. It's their culture. All of these excuses and myths that they want to make up. There's actually historical reasons for why our communities were destroyed, like in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street, for why highways were built through our communities, for why you have Nuri Martinez and others on the hot mic in the city council saying that they don't like the blacks, redlining, and all the exploitation that we experience, all of what we still deal with on a daily basis. This is all part of capitalism, and they're mistreating us. Like you said, they won't even let us lay on a bus stop. They don't even look at us as human beings. That is an insidious system.
You need to meet surging content.
That guy, that gentleman right there is just like, I wouldn't even be able to have a conversation because it'll just automatically, no matter how you try to frame that conversation, it'll be brought up into racism and gentrification and all that, no matter what you do, no matter what you talk about, no matter who it is.
Oh, I was gonna say, Russia actually also had slavery. Did you know that? They enslaved their own people too, and they killed millions of their own, but no one ever, you know, talks about that. They worked on the fields, 16-hour days, it was the same thing. But again, that happened like 100 years ago. Slavery in the United States, of course, it's a huge part, but that happened like 300 years ago. That was their life, you know what I mean? Like, you didn't have to do that. I didn't use that to come in here and say, oh, I have a tough life too. It's a man's world out here. I just should give up, you know?
No, I don't know. I don't know what you mean. See, my situation is nothing like yours. I don't know what you're talking about. You were able to come over here, like you said, as an immigrant and access white privilege that was put into place for you to access. Meanwhile, like I said, my father was born before the passage of the Civil Rights Act, born without civil rights, drank from segregated drinking fountains. My grandmother was born a sharecropper and escaped out of that.
Your dad, your grandmother. Insert an additional family member. I will tell you what she was trying to tell you. You did not have to go through those things. That's what she's trying to say. She said she came from Russia and they had, you know, slavery and all of that. What she's trying to tell you is that you yourself did not have to deal with these things, which is very likely true. Is there a whole list of other things you've probably had to deal with that you mentioned earlier in this video, absolutely, there probably is. But when it comes to slavery, you did not have to deal with it.
That situation, and the ending of slavery is not suddenly a glorious moment for African Americans like you're trying to paint it to be. It ended 100 years ago. No, we still deal with the issues today. So I don't know what you're talking about. I dealt with racism in my own life. I walk down Los Feliz, I get arrested for the color of my skin, stopped, detained, questioned, profiled, even held in.
And those are the ones where I agree. You've dealt with those things. Completely understandable.
Jail without being convicted of a crime. I have no clue what you're talking about. Okay. You speaking on Africans and African Americans and our experience and trying to compare it to Russians, I have no idea what you're talking about.
So I'm also black. I've gone through the same type of racism, the same N-words, the same small hick towns, all this stuff the same. And I never look at it. I never think about it like that. It's like, why does everyone have to bring up something that held someone else back? It's always, oh man, they did this to the blacks, or the blacks did this, or the Mexicans did this, or what about the good things? What about hey, did you see that dunk? Did you see that garb?
Yeah, I mean, I hear a lot of negativity around capitalism all
Why did you cut it? I don't know. I thought Caleb was going somewhere with this. I wanted to hear him keep talking.
the time, and I totally understand it. And if you look at the system that we have in place right now, and you blame, government bureaucrats for being in bed with the billionaires and the business owners and all that kind of stuff, and you think, oh, that's a big problem, which I hear a lot from people. That's not capitalism. That's cronyism. That's where business interest and government interest are inextricably linked. Capitalism just means private ownership over the means of production. As we were standing back there, you're talking about socialism and communism. I mean, that's a slippery slope to go down. You would know.
Yeah.
I come from a country that's more socialist leaning. We do pay a bit higher taxes, but we have universal health care. Right? And you look at, the happiness index of Denmark, you look at Norway, you look at Finland. These are places that have a mix of capitalism and socialism. I'm not saying pro-socialism in any way, shape, or form. That said, it does have its benefits. The blame that so many people put toward capitalism, I think, is misplaced. Capitalism, I personally think, is an absolutely beautiful, amazing, incredible system, and it's not even close to perfect because it's a system. Socialism is a system. Communism is a system, and albeit a horrible one. And human beings and human behavior and human nature is very rarely factored into these systems. That's what drives these systems. Would you agree?
Before they answer that question, that is true. So a system can sound great on paper. Capitalism in its purest form can sound great on paper. Socialism can sound very good on paper. But at the end of the day, it also depends on the people who are running these systems and for them to actually do it effectively. Like you said, the human variable is not included when we talk about these things. We just talk about, well, in this system, you do this, that, the third, and that's supposed to take care of everything. Well, once you start adding human beings and human interests into this, then it starts getting kind of gray areas throughout.
Yeah.
I would agree. If we had a system of capitalism and white supremacy wasn't involved because it wasn't imposed upon us, maybe we would have a different history. But the reality isn't like that. The reality is that this system of capitalism that we're under, it was involved in slavery. So like you said, it is about the human interest, and that comes into play, not just what's on paper. Like you said, when we're out here in LA and we're homeless, we have nowhere to go, we can't even lay on a bus stop. Where are we supposed to go? It's a crime for us to even exist in a society. So where are we supposed to exist at? I'm not
Bring that up with your government.
understanding. Where does the system want us to go? The Olympics are coming up.
I think the only thing you're not understanding is the prompt, which was about capitalism.
Right, that's capitalism.
I think if the prompt was pink puppy dogs, we'd end up at race like within one step.
So you can take race out of it because you don't deal with the negative aspects of race. You're not oppressed through the color of your skin. So you can take race out of capitalism. It's a part of capitalism. Who started capitalism? Who started the system?
Well, I'll say this.
I can tell you, it wasn't a black man in Africa.
The United States is not the only country that has capitalism.
Right, I said who started capitalism. Do you know? Was it a black man in Africa?
It went from feudalism to mercantilism to capitalism, and it was like a naturally evolving structure.
Did it naturally evolve in Africa?
It's a flawed system. No system is perfect. I agree, like it may create some homelessness. It might make some people's lives harder, but I think it promotes being great. It promotes you to be good. America is the wealthiest country in the world because of capitalism. The most capitalistic country, wealthiest country in the world. In fact, capitalism has driven prices of food so low, more people die of obesity here than starvation, right? There are 1,600 new millionaires created every single day. Me personally, I employ 20 people. They take care of their families. They live good lives, right? So imagine, I'm not even that rich. Imagine a billionaire. They're hiring tens of thousands, 20 thousands of people. So the more businesses you have, the more people that are taking advantage of capitalism, it's not just taking care of them. Like, yeah, I'm paid well, but also there's people that work for me that also have good lives because of it. So I think capitalism creates growth and it creates prosperity across the board. And it's not perfect, but it's the best we got.
Homeless encampments can be dangerous and should be cleared.
So I do security.
I live in New York. We don't have encampments, but it's starting, especially in some parks. Here's the thing. Should it be there? No, but it's also the byproduct of governments not knowing how to house or to build enough housing for those who are homeless. At least that's the way I'm seeing it. Like, you have New York and California being the two biggest examples. You have such a high spike in the homelessness rate, but the money that they are allocating for homeless prevention or for homeless shelters is just not enough to actually house and bed the amount of people that are in this city that are dealing with it. So the encampments are just a byproduct of a bigger issue.
And live in Skid Row. So not only do I usually put someone in a headlock, I usually see them later on that day. Not only that, everyone, and because I do security, everyone has a knife, or it's because it's for their protection. But it gets insane when you get people who are super high, super drunk, super off their square. It gets really weird.
I think Jack mentioned it earlier. He said the reason he was able to get clean is because he found somewhere to stay. He was on Skid Row, got off Skid Row, found somewhere to stay where he could shower, where he can get clean. And I think when you're there, you become a product of your environment. So like you said, if you're there and everyone's just high, or they're drunk, or they have a knife, or they're dangerous, or they're volatile, you're gonna absorb that. You're gonna like assimilate to that. So I think it is a little bit dangerous.
Well, I was gonna say, I grew up in Europe, so growing up, I was never worried about just going outside. I'm so used to going for like walks in like middle of the night and midnight. Coming to LA was a huge shock because I live in West Hollywood, which is a pretty okay area, but still, like, you cannot go outside past dark. And I was walking one time down the street, and it's, again, in West Hollywood, nothing crazy, daylight. This guy comes out of this tent, pulls out a knife and starts like chasing me. You never know what to expect those people because you don't know what they're on. So that's why they're dangerous, and that's why I wish the city of LA would provide a better solution, because in other countries it's not like that, and other cities it's not like that. In other states in America it's not like that. So I don't understand why LA is just so bad.
It is a mix of a very high population of people, because California is basically a country in of itself with the population, and just mismanagement of funds that are supposed to be allocated to these things. Same thing with New York.
Yeah, so from my perspective, you know, I've worked in city government specifically addressing the issue of homelessness. I've served in neighborhood councils, and looking at the data, there's not enough funds for all of us to be housed. There's not enough funds from the government that all of us can have.
The one time I completely agree with what he says, like 100%, I'm shocked.
A Section 8 voucher and have a place to live where we can have a roof over our heads. So since there's not enough funds for that, and there's not even enough emergency shelter, if you have given us no alternative, then how can they criminalize encampments? That's us doing the only thing that we can do to survive. Making a common space where we can all live, we can all set up what we need, and we can all survive. To pathologize us and make myths about us that we're in there doing drugs and drinking and all this stuff is going on. I've seen lots of homeless encampments where everyone is following the law, waking up, getting their bike, going to work, coming back, and it's just a place for law-abiding American citizens, many of them veterans who have served this country, to have a place to live, because the cities, the states, and the federal government won't even give us a roof over our heads. So I absolutely disagree.
I've never seen that.
I just want to touch on the Section 8 part, which, again, growing up with it, but also I work in real estate, so I work in leasing. I speak to people with Section 8 vouchers, city FAPs, Hasta Soda all the time, and I 100% agree. the city with these vouchers do not give enough money in them to cover like rent for decent places in this city. What is it, like the City Febs voucher in this city for a 1-bedroom is like 27 and change. Meanwhile, the average rent in this city is like over $5,000 for a 1-bedroom. I work in more like those high-rise amenity buildings where our 1-bedroom rent is at least $3,000. So it's like I want to help people, but like it's just not enough. And on top of that, the vouchers make it so strict that those who have the vouchers can't pay the difference. So even if the rent is over by like $200 and the person says that they make enough money that they can cover the difference, unfortunately the city is just not going to let them do that.
At encampment. And I've seen a lot of encampments. I've never seen that encampment specifically where I have seen grown-ups smoking crystal meth on the property of the police station every single day since I got here. I do not know where these law-abiding, veteran, church-organized encampments are. I just haven't seen them. These are disgusting grown-up people pooping on the floor. It is insanity.
Why don't you give us porta potties? Like I'm just tired of people talking.
Porta potties. They are full of poop. They are destroyed.
Because they're not maintained. They're not like homeless. Can I talk?
Absolutely.
Homeless encampments aren't given. They're treated as criminal, and we have to clear them away. And as a result, they're not getting those things to put dirty needles in. So there's needles all over the floor. They're not getting porta potties, so there's shit on the floor. And then they're like, oh look, there's shit on needles on the floor. We have to clear them out. But it's like we're not getting the support we need. And I think it's a huge misconception that the unhoused are this incredibly dangerous group. Like I lived on Skid Row and I didn't feel unsafe on Skid Row. I just felt sad there.
There was a purpose for you. Because guess what? And I'm gonna be honest, because I was there and we wanted people like you. You are the reason there is a Skid Row. Someone has to buy these drugs.
That is so crazy that you went to commercial saying that. But to go off of Jacob, now I like immediately forgot his name. But to go off of his point, so you create these communities because you have nowhere else to go. Completely understand. But you also want like things like porta potties and things to like dispose of needles to just be given to those communities that are self-made by the people who live there. Even for me, that does not make sense.
To buy these drugs on Skid Row. So you're gonna be allowed. You're gonna be allowed. But when I come through and they notice that I'm not buying drugs, people check me and try to check me every day, but I don't go for that. I'm telling you right now, there's the refresh. You can do laundry. There's open bathrooms all night, 24/7. There's places for clean needles. 4th and Town. You can get them every single day of your life if you want. Now you can make the excuse if they don't exist. It says don't exist. Those places are open and they're around and there's many of them and they're close.
But people get high and they get confused and and that's the truth. And they're not given the support or the resources. They're not saying like, hey, come here.
Or the veterans.
And I just think the question is like, are these encampments like I was my worst off when I was all alone. When I was in an encampment, I felt like protected. I felt like I had friends. I felt like I had connection, and I was able to bring my drug use down a little bit. When the encampment I stayed at closed, I was all alone, and I got lost, and I got confused. And I know it's my fault. I know I decided to use drugs, but these drugs are really powerful, and people underestimate what they do to people's brains. That's all I'm trying to say. And I think we need to give help to these encampments. And the more we treat them as criminal and try to clear them away, the worse it's going to be for people.
Well, I agree that I'm not a big fan of free handouts. I do believe that you should have basic needs, such as like, shelter, running water, maybe a restroom. But I think they should be cleared because it's not aesthetically pleasing to
Where are you going to put them? Tell me, let's say you got 1,000 people.
I don't think there should be homeless people in the first place. I think we should build mental.
But there is. I'll just finish really quick. There are a ton of homeless people. There's like, 775,000 people that experienced homelessness last year, I think is the stat, right? let's say there's 1,000 in one encampment, and the cops come along and go, okay, let's get rid of it.
Yeah.
Where do they go?
Well, I think if they have a mental, because Bregan closed down a lot of mental hospitals, so I think the United States ideally should build a lot of mental health institutions, and the people that do have mental health issues, they should go there and get all the professional help, because there is help out there.
Canada.
It's
but a lot of times when we have tourists coming in, it's so embarrassing, because I have a lot of people who come to LA and they're like, oh, let's go see the Hollywood Boulevard, and you see people pooping on the streets, tents, and they're like, this is a third world country. Tourists are gonna stop coming, and that's money that LA is losing. Business is gonna stop coming. A lot of companies are leaving LA.
The disconnection here is they should be cleared. Like, just tangibly take a moment and think about that for a second. Think about a massive homeless encampment. Where the fuck are they gonna go? They should be cleared is like, I'm human, they're not human. Right? It's an egregious thing, to be honest with you, to come out and.
I see both of their points. I do see where he's coming from, where it's like, okay, I get what you're saying, but where do they go? Well, that is a question that California government is supposed to be working on for the last decade, of what to do with all these people that are experiencing homelessness in their state. New York has the same issue. But they still haven't really done anything about it. And I also know where she's coming from, because whether you like it or not, the United States is ran like a business. Each state is run like a business. That's how government works. Government is just essentially handling the business part of their state. And like she said, if you do have issues, whether it is severely high homelessness, severely high crime, low chance of getting like good employment, low chances of actually getting housing, well, guess what? You lose the tourists that are going to be visiting, so there goes revenue out of there. You're going to lose the businesses, there goes jobs, which means there goes revenue. And then you lose the people, which means no revenue because no taxes. Once you do that, a state falls. So I see where both points are, and it's a big question that has to get answered.
And to agree to.
Well, I could do the same exact thing, right? Why don't I just grab a tent and like pitch it in someone's, go to Beverly Hills and pitch a tent? Like, you don't do that. You just don't do that. You just can't go pick a place and like be like, oh, I like this real estate, it's gonna be mine. You don't do that. You pay for each inch in LA. Like, it's not safe for me as a girl living in LA, because as a girl, when those guys they're out, I go for a walk, it doesn't matter what time of the day now, when they start chasing after me with a knife, that is scary. I don't think you've been in that situation, but for me as a girl,
I've 100% been chased with a knife. I've had people on our trips be threatened with abduction at gunpoint. I've seen it. I've been in a lot of different communities, and I genuinely think it's because of that work that they're fucking human beings, And you're talking about a very small minority, and I totally empathize with your situation of someone chasing you with a knife. That said, you're saying they're on drugs, they're scary, all that stuff. That's very again, dehumanizing of a population is very, very much human. And my one point here is, where do they go?
Also, the big benefit of the encampments is that when I lived at the Poinsettia Park encampment, and resource trucks would come by and they would be able to pass out clean needles, and they were able to get a majority of that encampment into longer term housing because we were all consolidated together. If there are no encampments, we're all scattered everywhere and the help isn't as easily accessible.
Yeah, but nobody should be in a tent in the United States. Like, no, because if LA is too expensive, which rent is crazy expensive here, right?
I think if you're not using the van to do business travel.
See, they just made the encampment question a lot harder.
Go somewhere else. Like,
Can they sleep on your floor?
What is it?
Can they sleep on your floor?
No, I'm saying go to a different state that's more affordable, like West Virginia. I just bought a house in West Virginia. The house is like 25.
Can they go sleep at the house?
25,000. It's so cheap. Like, LA is the second most expensive city in the United States. People that live here pay a lot of taxes, so they would want to have a nice environment. So if it's too expensive to live here, like literally in any other states, New Mexico is cheap, Like,
if you're homeless, if someone's homeless, you think they can afford to relocate to another state or city?
They provide now they can provide them with the bus tickets, with like.
And then when they get there, they'll have a home?
Go reconnect with like a family member that perhaps lives in a different state, or perhaps a friend. They should have made at least one friend in a lifetime that could in another state.
That's your privilege talking. We don't have family members to go live at their house. We don't have. That's the whole point.
I don't also like
that. I disagree with what she's saying a lot of the time. A lot of this point, people who are experiencing homelessness do not have the affordability to relocate somewhere else. And on top of that, even if they did have the amount to relocate, what's going to happen? They're just going to still end up being homeless when they get to the space. So that's where I disagree with her. On the part that, oh, we don't have family to stay in their house, that's your privilege talking. That's a damn lie for the most part. Again, me, my family, my experience. My grandmother was pretty much the safe haven for everybody in my family. If you didn't have a home, best believe you had space in my grandmother's house. Whether it was one of our bedrooms, whether it was the living room, whether it was the kitchen at one point. If you were experiencing anything, homelessness, drug abuse, you just lost your job, you just lost your apartment, anything like that, there was a 4 foot, 5 foot, 6 foot space somewhere in that apartment where you could stay in and lay your head out. So the fact that you can't say that nobody has family that can take care of you, because a lot of people do have at least one family member that would take them in.
With you, like you said, LA is so populated, it is really expensive, but also you have to consider the higher the population, the more resources there are for homeless people. True. Like if I go to Bump, West Virginia, am I going to find a food bank? Probably not. In some town with 5,000 people.
I think you will.
Maybe, yeah, maybe one that only is open on Sundays, and maybe I'm working that day, or there's not 20 at any time in downtown LA. I know that I'm near 20 food banks. There's at least 5 places near me that I can wash my laundry at if I have a job interview. These resources, the higher population you have, the more access you have to them. So it's not like, oh, why don't we just ship them somewhere cheaper?
But I think if I can't afford a lifestyle, for example, I can't probably afford Monaco. Monaco is the most expensive country in the world. I'm not gonna go and try to set up a tent there. There probably is resources there to help me, but I'm not gonna move to the most expensive place in the world knowing that I can't afford it and knowing that I'm gonna be homeless there. That's not the
You're gentrifying us and telling us that if you can come in, displace us, and we should go somewhere else.
Displace who?
Yeah, you are.
No. She's trying to make a common sense issue out of this, which I see where she's trying to come from. I can't defend it, in the sense of, hey, if you're experiencing homelessness, go relocate somewhere else. Because one, that just sounds horrible, and two, they don't have the means and the resources to actually do it.
Gentrifying us. You said that you can come to Los Angeles because you're wealthy, because you have money. You said you came from Russia.
She did not say that she was wealthy or had money. You just assume that now.
You have money. You bought a house in Virginia. Hold on. You bought a house in Virginia, so you can come to LA. You can gentrify. You can displace people. Historically, a lot of the people who are homeless here in Los Angeles are natives of Los Angeles. Many of them black. Many of them gentrified by people just like you who arrive, displace them, price them out of their own neighborhoods, then change the way that neighborhood looks, and suddenly that neighborhood that wasn't invested into for decades while black people were living there through benign neglect is suddenly invested into when you move there, and they should just go to Virginia.
I think we should take race out of it, please.
But wait.
Do we all agree that homeless encampments can be dangerous?
They're disgusting.
Yeah.
They smell dangerous.
You're a non-answer.
So my thing is this:
can they be
house
dangerous?
people can be dangerous. Someone's house can be dangerous. Their children getting abused inside of houses.
So do we agree?
So what I hear is you just don't want to answer a single question. I mentioned earlier here that you need to develop a skill that can pay you. He would make a great politician, because politicians do a great job of not answering questions.
That house people can be dangerous. Yeah.
So if y'all can agree that house people can be dangerous, I'll agree that unhoused people can also be
homeless
dangerous.
encampments can be dangerous. And the second part to the prompt is that they should be cleared, and that's the human part of it. Picture it being cleared. So to picture it, how do they clear it? What do they use to
that
clear it?
actually happened in my neighborhood. So I was off of Sunset and La Brea. Everything was cleared out, and then they put these planters with cactuses or something like that to keep people from camping in that area. And I thought, wow, that's crazy. And it only lasted about a week, and then it went back. But I wonder where everyone went, because as a resident of Los Angeles, I'm just like, man, it'd be nice if everyone was pushed to a certain section, not like cleared, like dispersed you're on your own. It's better that everyone's housed together, in my opinion. Kind of like when you guys were talking about, like you're more of in a community. I mean, I can be completely ignorant on that topic, but just from what I was seeing there, I'm like, oh man, I wonder where everyone went.
The system is rigged to keep the rich rich and the poor poor.
These meals changed everything for me. I'll admit it.
I don't think so. But let's see what they got to say.
I believe it is. And I believe it's because that's what you do when you're winning. You make sure you stay winning. And that's it. That's it.
It is rigged in a way. A good example, 2008. Do you guys remember what happened in 2008? Global financial crisis.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Shit hit the fan. Banks were failing, but not all the banks failed. The big banks didn't fail. Why did they not fail? Who bailed them out?
JP Morgan.
You did, you did, you did, you did, I did. We bailed them out. The taxpayer bailed them out. This is cronyism. I believe in free market capitalism. I believe those banks should have crumbled, failed, and we should have innovated on top. We should have created.
Same. Patrick Bet-David said it best. Capitalism is your freedom to succeed, but also your freedom to fail. And the same thing happened fairly recently with all of like the small local banks going under and failing. But guess what? The JP Morgans of the world, the Bank of Americas, the Citibanks, they're all standing. And that is such a bad thing to happen. One, because it is cronyism, it's not capitalism. But two, you're now like slowly forming monopolies of the banking sector to where only a few of like the big banks are going to be left standing by the end of it.
Did something way better. So in that way, it is rigged, but it's not rigged enough to keep everybody down. I don't believe that for a second. I believe capitalism provides amazing opportunity for people. Whoever creates the most value for the market reaps the most value from the market. I 100% believe that literally all four of you could be extraordinarily wealthy while the system is rigged in the rich's favor at the same time.
Yeah, so Donald Trump's big ugly bill just passed, and within his bill, they're estimated that millions of Americans are going to die because of lack of access to healthcare in the future. And for some reason, the billionaires get tax cuts, the millionaires get all these benefits, and those of us in poverty, we get the shaft, as always. Different programs like AmeriCorps, Job Corps, all these programs are disappearing because now it's an attack on DEI. Now they don't want to see anyone who's getting these opportunities continue to get these opportunities. So yeah, the system is definitely rigged to continue to see us failing, to keep us as a permanent underclass, serving the needs and the wants of those in power, and those in power to continue getting richer while we continue to die on the wayside.
I think it boils down to the definition, because he was saying rigged, right? Rigged would imply that you can't win. Like, you know the shell game? They go on the streets, they go like this, they put a little nut under the thing, they move it. That's rigged, because you can't win no matter what, they're gonna take your money. As a black male, it might be harder to get rich. As a woman, it's harder to get rich, right? As a white man, it might be easier, but it doesn't mean that a black male or a woman can't get rich.
I was gonna actually mention, I studied sociology in school, so it was actually really depressing when we got to the topic of wealth inequality, because they said statistically whatever class you're born in, you're actually going to end up at, if not even go lower, which is crazy, because coming out of college I was so optimistic and I was thinking, oh, I'm going to become so wealthy. A lot of times the idea of like American dream is dead, but I was going to say, well, a lot of it I think comes down to personal choices. And I noticed you mentioned a lot of times like, oh, but the circle that we have a big advantage. Again, I came here from like a country that I didn't even speak the language. I came here when I moved here from Florida, I didn't know a single person. So a lot of it really boils down to my personality. I have to present myself in a way that people wouldn't want to hire me. It has nothing to do, like for me, I didn't know you were African American. I don't care. I thought you were Indian, honestly. And I don't care if you're Indian, I don't care if you're black, I don't care if you're Mexican. To me, it's like, if you're a good person, like if you're a fun person, hey, let's hang out, hey, let's start a business together. It never boils down to a race to me, you know? Your energy has so much to do with it, your vibration, like I think you just gotta.
Once again, I think you're speaking from a position of privilege. So the statistic.
Once again, you are finding something to be offended on when she's not trying to offend you in any way. Like the laughter and the giggling here, I don't know if this is true, but it sounds like she's more nervous to talk to him because he's taking offense to literally everything everybody says. And I've had those kinds of conversations where it's like, you start to hesitate about what you say because now everything is under a microscope.
Show that an African American male with a college degree, with no felony record whatsoever, has the same chance of getting a callback, the same chance of getting an interview from a white man who has a felony record. What are we talking about here? We're not going off of people are just treating us the same based on our energy and our vibe and what I'm giving off of. People are treating us different based upon our race, whether you like it or not.
You took the race out of this whole segment.
Well, then we're talking about a system that's rigged. This system is rigged in your favor, not in my favor.
I'm a female. Statistically, you should be my boss. If you were born in this country, you have such a big advantage over me.
Who benefited the most from DEI programs?
What DEI
White women.
programs?
DEI programs in America, the majority of all DEI programs in America, who benefited from those programs? Which minority got to get those benefits? White women. You don't know the history of the country that you're living in?
No. Because, when was this DEI program?
These are programs that have existed in the United States of America for decades.
When was it created?
Donald Trump's administration is trying to get rid of them because the Americans have perceived that these programs actually benefited me, black men. If they knew that those programs mostly helped white women, you think they would have got rid of those programs? Can we be honest and have a real discussion? Or are we just gonna have a privileged discussion where it's
you can't have a discussion when you just want to basically not attack, but you basically don't want to answer questions that people ask you, but you want to just say your point, say your piece, ask people questions. Like, this is not a conversation. This is like a one-way street because they're trying to have a conversation with you. They're asking you questions. You refuse to answer them numerous times in this video, but then you come back with a whole bunch of other things. Like, and he might actually be right. He might actually be right about this. I don't know. I need to look up the statistics on this myself. I just have a problem with, like, you can't have a proper dialogue if, like, both sides are not willing to, like, give and take.
It's just vibes, girl. And when I go out there, everything is cool. If he could just vibe better with us, he would have a good time too.
Yes, because look, when it comes to hiring, at the end of the day, for me, I don't care if the person's white. I don't care if it's black. I really don't care.
The cops don't care either?
I'm not a cop.
Right. So the system is rigged. We're not saying you're rigged. We're not saying that befriending you is rigged based on all these things. The system is rigged to keep the rich rich and the poor poor. That's a reality. I was born into poverty. I lived my entire life in poverty, and I know that I've been busting my ass since day one. I've been busting it was a real victim mentality of busting my ass since day one, and they stopped busting my ass. And as a matter of fact, while I'm working full time, I'm still volunteering. I take my time out of my schedule to volunteer even when I'm homeless. I can be in a homeless shelter and still, it's such a victim mentality to help others that don't have what I have, to make sure that I even help those who have more than me. Such a victim mentality.
A lot of people have pointed out that I think you maybe exchange your time for a little bit too little money, because that is a choice that you make, I think you could get a better job than whatever you're getting paid, I think you should be able to afford rent, because you're a smart guy. I work a lot of hours. Sometimes I work like 16, 18 hours a day. I think you could work that too, and I think if you work that just as much, you could make amazing money. You could move up in the world.
The sole placement and sole custody of a child. I'm going to work 16 to 18 hours a day. Where's my child going to be at for those 16 to 18 hours?
Well, again, you're having a child, that was your choice. That was
But you just created a false hypothetical situation where I'm going to do something that's not going to act. I'm not living in an imaginary world. I'm living in a real world. I'm a single father. I'm an African-American dad. I live in Los Angeles, California. I live in the United States of America. This system here is rigged to keep the rich rich and the poor poor.
If it's too expensive in LA, live somewhere else.
I've lived all over the United States of America. And the reality is that someone like me, the data is showing, is not getting paid a fair wage.
That's already starting. I think all this racism dying off. If anything, white people are afraid to be white now. So all this is dying off, and nobody owns slaves no more. And you know what I'm saying? But come on.
You're saying that.
Y'all gotta stop cutting Caleb off. I want to keep hearing that man talk more. And these Canada Goose, that's how I know that we're getting to like the cold season, when I start getting these Coke commercials. Come on. There we go.
And all this type of stuff. The reality is right now we're dealing with a situation where far right extremism is more of a danger today than it's ever been. Where the president is inciting fascism and inciting racism in his speeches, in his policies, in the fact that he's against our own Constitution. How is the system not rigged in favor of the rich when we have a billionaire president with an administration full of billionaires? The Department of Education head right now is Linda McMahon. The only reason these people are getting into positions not based on their qualifications, not based on what their education is based on the fact of how much money they have. The entire system is fully rigged in the favor of those who are ultra rich and against those who are poor.
So, you know, as far as is the system rigged or not, I think people can argue to the end, back and forth, whether it is or it isn't. At the same time, I just want to say, who cares? Like, who cares?
Facts.
It doesn't matter. It's rigged. Okay, you have it harder. Okay. My dad told me this when I was younger. He's like, you're going to have it harder, and who gives a shit? He's like, you got to work hard anyways. At the end of the day, it doesn't change the solution, which, you know, the activity and your habits that take you to become successful or keep you out of poverty, it's going to be the same. And it's crazy, bro, because you're so educated on a lot of these topics. And it's like, man, if I could take my philosophies and just put it in your body, I'd be a millionaire in a year. So it really comes down to that. You have so much energy, so much intelligence, and it's like, man, it's like if I can just channel that energy into this different direction, bite some different philosophies, and just be willing to say, yeah, you know what, maybe I am wrong. Maybe the way I've been living, there's got to be something wrong because look at where I'm at now. I'm not happy with. And if that's the answer, that I'm not happy, then change must happen. You know, and you got to be open to change.
Yeah, I'm humble. I'm open-minded. I say this: everyone on this side wants to be where y'all at right now, and no one on y'all side wants to be where we're at right now, and that's just the reality.
Wealthy people have a duty to fix homelessness.
No. I'm just leaving it at that. No.
I like this. I think the more money you make, the more responsibility you bear, right? And the more responsibility you have, the more you want to help other people, bring them up, educate them, help monetarily. Whether you fix it through money or whether you fix it through education, whether you fix it through reform, there's a lot of things you can do once you start making money because you can start making impact. Especially hearing your guys' stories, it makes me feel bad because I feel like I could do more. I can't, obviously. But I think the wealthier you get, the more responsibility you have for that stuff.
I think every person has a duty to help their fellow human being. And homelessness is an initiative that it's been near and dear to my heart for a long time. It's not just lip service. I mean, I've helped people fundraise through my company and built 150 homes for people that didn't have homes in Mexico. And I've been involved in charitable stuff for the last 25 years. It's one of the most gratifying things that I do. I think it's actually more of a selfish thing to do, to be honest with you, because it's like it feels amazing doing it. I feel like I'm actually fulfilling my calling. And I think anybody has a duty to help their fellow human. It's just part of being a decent person.
I feel really glad hearing y'all's perspectives on like individually feeling kind of like compassion to put yourself in others' shoes. And a lot of the times just everyday life is just so stressful when you're, you know, poor. It's like you can't think about the greater good for society. It's every day is just survival. I stepped forward because I was thinking kind of like in terms of taxing the rich a little bit. Taxes, you know, go to public services like libraries and roads, and I feel like those things are important more on a systemic level. And then you guys made a good point about like how you individually feel. That's not even something I had thought about with the prompt, so.
That's where there's a problem, because like the two guys that are on the millionaire side that said their piece, their thing is like they volunteered or they chose to do these things. When you start implementing, hey, we need to force them by way of taxes, well, now you're introducing a third party, aka the government, and the government now has control of the money, and they're going to allocate it the way they see fit for programs that they think that you're going to need, which most times it just does not work. Like, I'd rather be the millionaire that's like building houses for those experiencing homelessness than to have my money taxed for a government and they just be like, well, we're going to put it here and it's magically going to disappear.
I was glad hearing like y'all's takes on that.
Me too. It was, and I think just this discussion is part of helping, you know what I mean? I do think the rich have a duty to help the unhoused, and there's just this one thing, I always thought it was weird. I'm not saying that when I was unhoused, people were needed to give me money, but I would panhandle a lot, you know what I mean? And whenever I was in like really wealthy areas like Calabasas, I wouldn't get any money from anybody. But if I went to like a lower income neighborhood, like if I went to East LA, I'd get a lot of money. And it just made me like wonder like why the upper class is more hesitant to directly help the unhoused. And I'm thinking maybe because they don't want us like staying in their neighborhoods and stuff.
I think it's because they can't relate.
Yeah.
Because this is I don't know if I'm allowed to do this, but I thought about this beforehand. I actually got everyone freaking little things so you guys get a stay at a hotel for however long. So all of you guys got one. There's $250 on this.
Whoa.
For any hotel you want.
Thank you.
Make sure you guys are good. I love this prompt, so I don't know if I'm allowed to do this. If I'm breaking the rules, it's for you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
But
David's
I
like,
think
I'll
part
take
of that's
that.
because people can't. Because I remember there was at some point my dad, there was an ugly little like divorce battle where he tried to sell the house and me and my mom were almost homeless. So it's like when I hear this stuff, it makes me sad. It sucks and I feel like really grateful to have money now. So I wanted to make sure that you guys.
I really appreciate
I can't do like it's not much, but also just on the top I have goosebumps. It's crazy.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
I got you. Yeah, you guys, everybody deserves it.
And I would say, since you have that heart and that mind to do that, I would say get involved with organizations that are in Skid Row, that are right now fighting this battle. We don't have people to make sure that Gavin Newsom can hear our stories. We don't have people to make sure that Karen Bass can hear our stories. Being millionaires, I'll be honest, y'all can get to these leaders quicker and better than we can. I've been down to City Hall and tried to talk to them. They quick to throw us out of there. Let you guys go down there, petition, talk to them, ask them. They'll probably listen to y'all way faster than they'll listen to us. That's just my perspective on it.
True. Actually, I'm not gonna lie, I really did like that segment.
I guess I just want to say, from my personal experience, every successful like entrepreneur or person that's made a lot of money, they've always given back. They're actually some of the more giving people in my experience. I guess with the prompt, just the word duty, as if they were obligated. It's like I don't think it should be written anywhere, but I think it's a natural philosophy that if you've ever struggled and understand what that's like, that when you make it, it's like, how do you not feel good about helping someone else out because you've once been in their shoes? So, I mean, I agree with everything everyone was saying. I guess the word duty maybe threw me off.
I think if you make it a responsibility, you're gonna cheapen it. Like if y'all were responsible for giving me a hotel every night, he would have pulled that out. I'd be like, bro, I'm gone with that. I don't know. You should have gave me twice as much, 3 times as much, because now you're obligated. I stood in a line for 2 hours almost to get this T-shirt because I was like, I need something to match these shoes. And I saw people in the line complaining. Somebody said, oh, they don't care about what they're doing. I'm like, bro, they're volunteering. If people are responsible for doing stuff for other people, then it's gonna turn more of like, why didn't you do that for me? Instead of why didn't I get off my ass and get it? We all also do have our own families. And I plan on being filthy rich. I mean, absurdly, disgustingly rich. And I don't want all of a sudden now it's on me to take care of everybody else's, because I have a lot of children. I got to take care of my own thing.
I was gonna say, I was gonna add to yours. I feel like a lot of times, like when rich people do even help, it's never enough. They get taxed more than anyone else. It's still not enough. We're people are still like, oh, like eat the rich, and like I still help. I help my church, like rescue, and I still want to like foster like a couple kids when I'm older, but it's not gonna be enough. It's not gonna solve anything, and I'm still gonna be looked as, oh, like you're a white girl, like you have privilege, It just feels like, not that I need the validation or anything, but sometimes it just feels like no matter how much you do, no matter how much you give, people are still gonna look down on you, and they're still gonna do like, oh, but you have this, oh, but you're whatever, you're a female, oh, but you're tall, but you're white. That's why you got those things. But a lot of times it's like, you can't win,
Because you owe me.
Yeah.
You owe me.
It's always.
I think I meant like not as much a legal responsibility necessarily. I think it's just we kind of overlook the spiritual connectedness of all of us and that we have moral responsibilities for each other. So yeah, you maybe don't literally owe me anything. I think that we all owe each other like dignity and help and respect. And yeah.
If you give people free housing, they won't be motivated to change their lives.
Ooh, that's a tough one. Okay. I can, this is my 2 cents on this. You can give somebody free housing, but for a limited amount of time. Like you can, this is the problem with like the voucher programs now. It's like once a lot of people get the apartment, there are some who will work their butt off to improve their lives and everything like that. And then there's some people that will look at this like this is going to be their whole lives. So what I mean by that is like free housing should just be a stepping stone to get out of poverty. And it should be in a place where like, all right, we're giving you this for 6 months, a year, 2 years, something like that, like a finite amount of time. But then I think you also need to pair that with other resources like job placement, food pantries, clothing donations, things like that, like can help them like get step by step to building up their own lives to where they could be independent completely. So does free housing work? Yes, but I think it would only work if you do it for a limited amount of time per person.
Well, I am literally looking at people who are going through these housing processes every day. I'm going through it myself, but I do believe it should be a temporary thing. It should always be a temporary thing because your parents should raise you, and if they don't raise you, you're not someone else's problem. And nothing should be free. And if there's this big utopia of free stuff, then it probably isn't in America.
Yeah, so when I say this, I'm just speaking for other countries, right? You look at like, I've traveled the world, you go to other countries, specifically like in Europe, a lot of them, they do this free housing thing. Really? And the people that are in this free housing, they don't work. There's just like a minimum thing where they're just there in this free housing, chilling. Which I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I think with the prompt saying, if you give someone free housing, they're not gonna wanna work. I think that's true.
I think it's completely counterintuitive because if it's free, you know?
Yeah. So I think anything that's given for free is usually taken for granted.
Right.
I think that's what it is.
True.
I know for me, like I had a very traditional.
Besides this.
We're gonna use that. No, I had a very traditional like Asian mom, and I grew up in LA, so like I'm not like she wanted me to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer. If she just let me stay in her house, if she was like, you know what, you could just stay here and figure your life out, I probably wouldn't have become successful. But she was like, no, get the hell out. She kicked me out. Having that something to motivate you or push you, it'll get you to work a little bit harder.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to apply that statement to everyone. It's like you can't say that as a blanket statement because it's going to be like every individual is different. I'm very grateful I don't have a mortgage anymore, and it did kind of. I'm like, oh man, the motivation kind of does go down with it, but that doesn't speak for everybody.
I think like housing is a baseline to make better decisions. At least for me, I wasn't able to get sober until I was able to get into a cafeteria to get out of the rain, and I was able to think more clearly. And there's an issue right now, especially in Los Angeles. That's the city I can speak from. But the easiest way for me to get shelter was going to a gay bathhouse. And like that's like kind of a fucked up system if that's the easiest way for me to get shelter, because the shelters in LA, they were not letting me in because I had a drug abuse problem. And I think there needs to be a place for people, even if they're using drugs, and not saying, hey, you can't get shelter unless you stop, because some people physically can't stop. And it's hard to stop if you're just on the streets, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think there's extenuating circumstances. Like again, I've been involved in a lot of initiatives in mostly foreign countries, and like you said, like the poverty there is unbelievable, right? Like there's zero choice.
Americans don't understand.
Yeah, it's not like for lack of trying that these people are homeless. Like not even close. This is like the last house that we built was for a mom and 2 kids, and she's doing everything that she can. So it's just getting people a baseline to be able to ground and have the safety, the security, like the dignity that comes with having a place to call home, so that they can launch, because they're not worried about, oh man, there was a heavy rain today. That means the hillside that I live on, which is...
Unlock more with Disney Plus, Hulu, and all of the...
Left. Are you really gonna give me a commercial with 2 minutes left?
Is gonna like completely flood out my house. They have to worry about like the most very, very basic things that hold them back from actually focusing on starting a business, running the business, making money from the business, making it more profitable, getting their kids in school. So I think it's more of like a launch pad than something that would inhibit.
I agree with you. I think with me, my main point was if it's just permanent, I think that's where the issue comes, because then people will say, I'm gonna have this forever, I'm not gonna do this. I have no issues with people saying, hey, we're going to give you free housing for 2 years.
The reason that people would say it's forever and they want to just keep it, again, it goes back to trauma. It's like someone being unhoused is very rare. It's in my experience and in the massive amounts of data that I've looked at, has very little to do with someone being lazy or not trying.
I just remember.
But at least I know there's some people that agree with me with the free housing, yes, but for a temporary amount of time.
Being on the streets, like sometimes I would like make a sign and say like, could someone take me out to eat? And it's not necessarily because I was hungry. And I just wanted to like be inside and sit with somebody for a little bit. And I just really encourage anybody, if they see like someone unhoused, even if you don't want to give them money, just look at them in the eye and say hi. Like that goes a really big way. That's all.
And I just want to say to y'all that homelessness is a very lonely experience and a very traumatic experience. And I think that Jubilee Media deciding to bring out unhoused people to give our perspective is a big move and a big look, and I definitely appreciate it. And for y'all sitting down with us and having this conversation, I think this is a big look for all of us, so we appreciate y'all.
I'm not gonna lie, I've bashed this gentleman here for most of this live stream because of like the seemingly combativeness, the not wanting to answer questions, things like that. I will say part of it might just be the way Jubilee cuts and edits their videos. This sounds like from the end of it, like a very productive conversation on both parts. And I do believe we may hear from him in like 10 years because he's very intelligent. He knows a lot about a lot of these different social subjects. He does have experience working for city government. We may be hearing from him in like local government scene in California for some time. It's just, damn, seeing it in this video, like first impression, it was just like, bruh.
For real.
Yeah, definitely. It's easy to feel very like unseen, so just having this opportunity, like I really looked forward to coming on here and being able to talk about this stuff. It is easy to just feel like you're completely just invisible. And thank y'all for sharing like your experiences. I feel like we had good discussions.
My hands are sweaty too, man.
Thank you so much.
I'm happy they're able to like hug it out, shake hands. So like, this is what conversation should be. Like, this is what a dialogue should be. People on both sides of like sorry, I thought there was something wrong with my audio. Both sides that don't see eye to eye, come from completely different walks of life, being able to sit down and to have a conversation without it getting to any kind of like personal level. Did it get kind of shaky here a couple of times? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, they're able to have this discourse. And even if they don't completely agree on everything, it's more of like, okay, we can agree to disagree. But I am very, very curious on these comments, though. Hold on. If you don't want to be poor, just get a job that pays you more money. Wow, I never thought of that. I figured that was going to be... Red shirt dude really poured his heart out talking about why encampments were important to him, and she really said they're not aesthetically pleasing. Okay, so I take it the comments are going to be more like one person being tone deaf, and I will say I kind of got the same feeling when they were having this conversation here. And they're saying, I'm not even that rich to people without homes. Kate's mentality is basically, oh, you're homeless? Why don't you buy a house? Dang, they are all coming after Katie. Like, I think it's deplorable how many homeless people in our country are veterans. That's very true. Like, homelessness and veterans is crazy. But gotta be rage bait. I'm surprised. Not really. You should not have had the Russian woman. She does not know about enough the history of this country to have valid opinions. Is that victim mentality? Am I being victimized? 5:34 o'clock it. Okay. I'm gonna end it at this because I gotta get to work tomorrow. And I'm not seeing any comments here that, at least in this first scroll, that makes me want to really deep dive into it. But thank you guys for watching this. Y'all are awesome here, even the lurkers. And I